So one of the things I believe is if you ask in a Facebook group, what's the best market to invest into, or what's the top 10, take all of those, the volume of what people are telling you to invest into, and write that down as your do not invest in those markets.
What's up, everybody? My name's Mike Sjogren, here with my co-host,
Emmanuel Pani.
We're part of a group of specialized real estate investors you've probably never heard of.
We didn't start with deep pockets or wealthy families, and we don't rely on 401ks, mutual funds, or traditional real estate investing.
In fact, many of us don't even own the properties that fund our freedom. If you ask the money experts out there, they'd say what we do is impossible, yet it's happening every single day.
It's happening through a new niche called short-term rentals.
We are Short-Term Rental Nation, and these are our secrets. What's going on, STR Nation? Welcome back to another episode of the Short-Term Rental Secrets podcast. I am your host, Mike Sjogren, here with my main man and brother from another mother, Mr. Emmanuel Pani. What's going on, E?
My brother, so good to see you. Happy Thursday. We are in March, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know how that happened. I feel like I just fucking did a little blink and now it's already March. So I hope everybody is absolutely kicking ass with their goals. Life is good, man. Like, we're super busy helping a lot of investors find properties down here. Again, South Florida market is really interesting right now. Super healthy, super strong, very busy. And then I'm really excited about our guest today and the little announcement that we have. I think it's going to be very, very exciting. And I think one of the highest listened shows that we have. The very first time.
100%. He was definitely top 5.
Yeah.
And you guys will know why once we bring him on here in a minute. Like, one super smart investor, super successful in business, but just very authentic and very giving of his time and his information, and just very willing to share. So really excited to bring him on. And
we should make a badge for people that have come on the show more than one time. Like how SNL has the jacket. And it's like, the five time jacket. So we have.
I think it's only been this person and Mark Simpson came on twice, right? We did that too.
We have some elite people up there, So it should be a badge of honor.
100%, man. 100%. Well, the only other update that I have is this house is almost done. Like, it's pretty much done. The last thing they're doing is finishing the game room in the garage. Got a pretty sick Avatar theme going in there with the glow-in-the-dark paint and all that jazz. So super pumped for that. And then we just got to add some LEDs to this, call it a Starship movie room, just for various reasons. But it's going to be epic. I can't wait.
Don't watch the show on YouTube. You can go in and watch it, and you'll see that Mike is inside what looks to be some kind of spaceship right now.
Yeah. So we've got the whole control module up here with the projector, and it's pretty epic. It's pretty epic. So I'll be working on the direct booking site on the way home, and then getting the listing up on Airbnb and Vrbo within the next week or so. But for those of you guys that follow the show and have signed up for our free starter pack and all those good trainings, and you're on our email list, I'll give you guys first dibs. I know a ton of people have been DMing me on Instagram and Facebook asking for the booking link. And our guest today asked me for it as well. So I got to get that rolling, and super pumped to start sharing this with everybody, because the house is amazing and I'm super proud of what we put together here. So anyway, without further ado, I'm not going to go through and read his whole bio because we did it last time, but he's a heavy hitter in the STR space. He's the founder of Build Short-Term Rental Wealth. He's built, I think at this point, over like 30 different businesses, super successful guy. And without further ado, Mr. Bill Faeth, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. That's a good looking shirt you got on there, Michael.
Yeah, I know we didn't give E the memo. Usually E has the clean white button down, so I didn't even think that I needed to say anything. And I've been slacking lately, but I feel like I'm on the other side of the fence this week.
I felt kind of cozy today. I was just like, I don't feel like wearing a button down. Just want to be comfortable. But it's funny, right? You realize you put these outfits on, and you're just like, this is my podcast uniform. And I was like, I don't need to wear a podcast uniform. I'm just gonna wear a t-shirt today. So, but of course, it's the one.
The guest uniform should be part of the questionnaire on the front end,
right? Please send us your outfit choice so we can approve it before the show.
Exactly.
I love it. I love it. Well, Bill, just real quick for the folks that haven't listened to the first episode, one, make sure you guys go listen to that. We'll link it in the show notes when this airs. But why don't you give everybody just kind of that 2-minute background on you and how you got into short-term rentals and what your strategy's been, and then we'll take it from kind of where we left off a year ago to what's been going on the last year for you, and then we'll let it flow from there.
Yeah, I mean, I got out of LTR like a lot of people have been in that in both the residential, commercial, industrial space for years. Back when I started making a little bit of money in my early 20s as a professional golfer, and I invested into my first duplex in California. Live in Nashville, Tennessee right now. I have never invested into STR in Nashville. We can talk about that later, but the regulations are the worst and the most volatile, so I've stayed away from my home market. I started investing into beach properties. And basically took $126,000, made my first down payment, took a $55,000 a year revenue generating property, turned it into 112. 2 years later, bought my second property out of retained earnings, never put another dime into my portfolio. Today, I've got $9.8 million in assets with $3.2 million in debt, cash flowing $800,000 a year, and getting ready to close on a property in an emerging market. And this is the interesting thing. It's an emerging market for us as investors. And I'm not going to name it on the podcast because I haven't made it public yet. But there's still a lot of emerging markets out there that have secretly been sitting in these pockets of the US for years. This market's been around for 35 to 40 years as a vacation rental market. And it'll be the biggest purchase that I've made at $1.6 million. I've actually never bought anything over $1 million before. So it's a big asset purchase for myself. And really what I'm about is kind of the life plan tied into our financial plan and our family plan, and making sure that we have very intentional goals that we can actually keep score with. So we need numbers, we need dates, and then we can kind of build our plan and backtrack all the way down to the daily distilled decisions that we have to make to achieve that plan.
And so
I love that.
One thing I want to highlight right there, because E and I talk to people about this all the time. You know, we'll do different calls or people DM us, and you know, they have these huge goals, which is amazing, but they'll be like, you know, I want 100 units, I want 500 units. And then I always go back and ask them, well, that's awesome. Why? Like, why? What's the purpose of that, right? And then when we really peel the onion back and distill what the true goal is, I'm like, dude, you could do that in 5 units, 10 units, maybe 20 units. Like, you don't need that many. And to your point, you know, you've got 9 doors bringing in $800K a year in cash flow, right? So it's like, you don't need a ton of properties. You just need to figure out what your goal is. And you and I talked about this quite a bit a few weeks ago when we were hanging out around, like, getting clear on that life plan of like, what is the lifestyle that I want to have? Because I'll tell you, going from 5 to 9 to 20 to 40 plus, totally different ball game from an operation standpoint.
Well, and I think one of the reasons that people, their why, Michael, is like where you and I and E met, you know, was just over 16 months ago, was on Clubhouse. And everybody's talking about, they're measuring their you know what based on the number of units that they have. And I remember I was the odd man there. You know, I'd be up on stage, and at the time I had 10 units. So I've gone to 1 to 13 owned, back down to 9, and I'm generating more EBITDA, more cash out of the 9 than I was at 13, right? And I've hit this goal. My goal was to do $750,000 in net income on an annual basis. I've surpassed that. And really what happens is I think that needle moves. Right. But the only way that you can keep your eye on that needle is if you document everything. And I don't think we talked about this last time. If I can just take 2 minutes, I've done 33 startups in my life. I built 2 companies over 50 million. I built another one over to 33 million that we actually had to shut down because of COVID. And Michael, you mentioned when we were waiting to get started, I'm interested to see your blue game room that you're doing. I don't know if I can call it the A word or not. But because you talk about the glow in the dark stuff, right? And so it started an industry from scratch, which is called glow golf, glow in the dark miniature golf in shopping malls around the country, and built that into a $32 million business. It's all blacklight mini golf. If you go to your malls, you know, the Natick Mall up where you live was our number 2 store. I moved to Nashville because the Opry Mills Mall was our number 1 store. I moved here in 2003. But what happened with that is that we had a very distinct goal. And I learned from my business partner, who was the second franchisee into Pizza Hut and had over 300 Pizza Huts, owns half of Wichita, Kansas, 3 golf courses, probably close to $500 million in real estate, that if I didn't have intention and I didn't align with my wife, my spouse, then I wasn't going to have a quality of life. So I was making a shitload of money, but I was chasing every little thing that I could. And I didn't have intent of what I wanted to actually achieve with my 2 daughters and also my wife. And when I aligned all of that, we actually signed a contract all the way down from I'm going to retire on May 11th to 2032 because that's my 60th birthday or before, or here's how much net income we have. Here's how much debt we can absorb. Here's what our liquidity needs to be. Here's how much cash goes to the 2 weddings I'm going to have to pay for 2 college educations. Then distill everything down to what I'm doing with all of my investments and all of my businesses. So I still have 4 other businesses, but it's funny. A lot of people, everybody became a crypto investor in Bitcoin and day trading during COVID. And I only own 6 shares of stock, 6 shares, not 6 companies, 6 shares of stock. And I look at a lot of people that know me think I'm uber aggressive, but I'm actually uber conservative because everything is 110% calculated to every single decision. So one thing I want to talk with you about today is the emerging markets, because that's something that I look at. People follow the trends on social media. So one of the things I believe is if you ask in a Facebook group, what's the best market to invest into, or what's the top 10, take all of those, the volume of what people are telling you to invest into, and write that down as your do not invest in those markets list. And then pivot and go find someplace else. Use AirDNA, use your tools, and find an emerging market. And I can tell you that's how I've increased my net worth just over the last year by $5.2 million in my personal STR owned portfolio, because I'm investing into these emerging markets, and I can get discounts on the primary markets at 20, 30, sometimes 40 or 50% on the entry, which is going to tie directly into our cash on cash.
So good. So good. And I remember when I first started studying real estate and I hired some pretty heavy hitters in the multifamily space. I'm not going to name drop and all that, but that was one of the things that all of them focused on was identifying emerging markets, right? And so they had all of these indicators of job growth, population growth, all of this data that you can go through and mine for free through the census website and all these different things. But nobody's really talking about that on the STR side of the house. Mm-hmm. And I think, we can learn a lot from a lot of the seasoned, apartment investors, hotel investors, all of these things. Like, what are the metrics that they're looking at to figure out where's the next thing that's going to pop? And to your point, a lot of people talking about the Smokies, a lot of people talk about where I am in Kissimmee. That's a whole nother discussion of what we did to differentiate from the other 30-something thousand listings. It took a lot of capital to do that, right? But if you're not willing to do that and you think, okay, I'm going to get a little 3-bedroom in the Smokies for $700,000 and I'm just going to furnish it and poof, I'm going to make a lot of money, you might have a rude awakening in a month or two when you're done.
Just like spending $400,000 on a 2-2 condo in Kissimmee, right?
Yes, exactly. So what are some of the things, I guess, that you look for when you're trying to figure out what an emerging market may be?
So I look at basically a tier 2 market. So let's just use everybody that knows me knows I've invested significantly into the Gulf Shores market. I started doing that 5.5 years ago. I did buy my most recent property. I closed on December 10th of 2021, but I actually got a beachfront property in a second tier market to Gulf Shores, which is Fort Morgan, Alabama, right? So you have Orange Beach and Fort Morgan. I went there 5.5 years ago because a guy that I played professional golf with 25 years ago, who was also in my wedding, very good friend, is in Destin, in Miramar. And not only did his family and himself own the Frangista Beach Inn, which had been the restaurant, which had been there forever, they tore it down and built almost $500 million worth of townhomes and houses. He owns over 100 properties. He manages over another 400 or 500. The guy knows that market. And when me and my wife were going to get into it, and I went down and I stayed in 30A, and we had lunch, and I call him, his name's William, I won't say his last name, William, but we call him Wee Wee. I said, Wee Wee, and he owns his own real estate brokerage. can you help me find a property here? And at that time I said, I want to spend under $700,000, which was a lot more money 5.5 years ago, obviously, than it is today. And he said, 6, because my nickname was Six Pack, not because of my, abs by any means back then. He said, go check out Gulf Shores. And I'm like, where's that? And he's all, it's about 2 hours that way. And I'm like, why would I want to go do that? I like it here. He's all, because you're not going to find anything, even at that time, 2015, you're not going to find anything within the first 2 tiers, maybe even 3 tiers of the beach. And I wanted to be able to at least see the water, see the beach. So about 3 weeks later, my wife and I flew to Gulf Shores and we saw 10 properties in one day. We found the one, we put it under contract, we closed 30 days later, and then we were off and running. But I don't want to call it a mistake, because I think being uneducated doesn't mean that I've made a mistake. I just hadn't educated myself, and I thought I was going down the right path, like a lot of people that get into STR. And I had a property management company. So the agent that I used worked for a property management company. And in vacation rental markets, we hear this all the time, right? So I used a property management company. And like everybody else, they sucked. And it was started on Memorial Day, fired him within 4 months, and then took over and started learning how to do everything on my own. And I had another gentleman that I helped build his educational platform in this industry that you and I know. And I kind of followed some leads that he did. And I've always wanted to stay in those tier 2 markets. So it's like one of the reasons I don't invest in Nashville, Tennessee, and downtown Nashville is it's been, along with Manhattan, probably the 2 most volatile regulatory markets since 2013. But I do have property outside of the Davidson County issue, right? So I look at Gulf Shores is a tier 2 market to Destin, 30A, Miramar. But then even to Gulf Shores is Fort Morgan, Alabama, much less densely populated. The homes are a lot older. So I bought a beachfront house for under $1 million, which is unheard of. Did I have to put $120,000 into it and 9 weeks of reno? Absolutely. But now I'm in, or let's just call it 1-1, and I've got a $1.4 million property that's going to yield $200,000 to $225,000 in gross rent, right? So I also built a 6-bedroom, 4-bath tier 2 in the heart of Gulf Shores for $980,000, essentially the same price that I paid for the beachfront, right? But that 6.4 versus a 3.2 is going to do probably close to $300,000 in revenue. So for me, it's not about the market. It's about the individual deal that we can get on the individual piece of property. And if you look in emerging markets, think Blue Ridge to the Smokies, right? But now Blue Ridge has been blown up, and it's overpriced. So now we got to look at, different places to Blue Ridge. You look at Asheville as an example. Asheville's kind of a tier 2 market, to the Smokies on the North Carolina side. Well, there's a lot, once again, you got to be owner occupied. You can't even get a permit in the city limits of Asheville. So you need to be just outside of it. So the one thing that's consistent for like Blue Ridge, Smokies, Asheville, North Carolina is the surrounding DMA of 27 million people that can drive to all of those locations. And they're coming in from Charlotte and Virginia and Roanoke on the north, east side. They're coming from Knoxville and Nashville and Louisville on the west side. From the south side, you got Athens and Chattanooga and Atlanta, coming up into it. So really, you can't go wrong in any of those markets. So why the hell would you want to overpay in the Smokies? Go to one of the other outlying emerging markets, save 20, 30, even 40 or 50% on the front end on the acquisition of the property, and that's going to dramatically increase your cash on cash return. If you guys don't know what cash on cash return is, if you put $100,000 down on a $500,000 property, you have $10,000 in closing, and you have a $40,000 furniture design rehab budget, that's a total of $150,000. So if you generate $75,000 a year in net cash, not gross rents, but net cash. So let's say the house generates $150,000 in rent, and you actually can net $75,000. You would get your cash back in 2 years. But you've got to add everything up on the front, and then on the back, you got to subtract every expense, insurance, taxes, permitting, everything, and that's going to determine your cash on cash. I don't see deals, and people send me deals, Michael, like they probably do to you every day, at least every week. Hey, can you evaluate this for me? Can you evaluate this for me? I haven't seen one in the Smokies that's been able to do 30% cash on cash return unless somebody's putting well over 20% down for probably about 9 months. And in my opinion, excuse my language, but if you're getting less than 20%, it's a bad fucking decision, because we need to be making financially driven decisions if we're doing this from an investment standpoint and not letting our emotional bias play into it, right? So that's why I say when you see those top markets, you need to steer away from them and find the secondary markets that might be 20 miles, 50 miles, 100 miles outside of it, because you're going to get a better entry point. And if you do really well at marketing, optimizing your listings on the OTAs, and then actually doing some simple off-platform marketing, then you're going to be able to excel and probably outpace AirDNA's 90th percentile. Sorry for the long answer.
That's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah, that was great.
I don't know if you want to jump in. I feel like I've been hogging this conversation.
I got nothing to say. Right. The thing with me is this, right? I am, as always, same thing with Mark, right? It's just like, I am always a student, right? So when I hear somebody talking about things that they know, what am I gonna say, right? Like, I'm just here to listen, and I'm always amazed at like how well Bill does things, because to me, what's really interesting with Bill, and what's a great thing for people listening that may be kind of similar to Bill, is there is a way, right? Like, Bill finds a way. And how does Bill find a way? With the numbers, right? So you look at the numbers, you're like, okay, this is what I want. Where do I have to go? And numbers are beautiful because numbers never lie to you, right? And then once you know, what Bill knows, right? It's like, okay, this place here, 40, 50 miles from here, I'm going to put this kind of experience in it. And the thing that I still remember by the first episode was the coffee bar. The coffee bar was one of the greatest little tips in an episode that I've ever heard. But that's why you take properties that used to make what, 55,000, 60,000, and you bring them to 120,000. Because the beauty with these businesses, with vacation rentals overall, and especially the way that you do it, Bill, is the fact that like then the property becomes an experience, and the property is really a business of its own, right? It becomes a living, breathing kind of business and entity. And then all you focus on is like, okay, how do I improve my operations, lower my cost, and increase my rate, right? That's all you really kind of care about. What I am curious to ask you is, you obviously go through a lot of different markets. What does the back of the house look like for you? So you have your team, or is it just you? Do you run all your communication? And then how do you find runners? It's all you.
Just me. And the reason that it's just, and I shouldn't say that, my wife a little bit. If I'm jumping on a Southwest flight and they don't have internet for that day, I'll text her before we get. So first, I have the process, right? I check in at the gates. I fly a lot. Hey, is internet? Do we have internet on the flight? They say yes. Sometimes that doesn't work out. Literally, the only time she jumps in is if we're driving together and I'm driving, or if I'm on a flight without internet. Outside of that, it's all me. So 99.9%. That's currently 9 owned properties, 1 going live in the next 2 or 3 days, and 8 managed or / co-hosted properties as well. And a lot of people think, well, how the hell can you do that? Well, I've also got 2 children, very active. I travel a lot, and I've got 4 other businesses that I run. And I say this not to beat my chest, but to let you know that if you're thinking about getting in right now, like with 1 property, or you're going from 3 to 5 or 6 or 20, you can automate 99% of this and still stay personal. And the way that you can still stay personal is, I was actually flying down to Cape Sandblast. There's an emerging market for everybody, because everybody gets mad at me when I don't tell them what it is. Cape Sandblast, the Forgotten Coast. You know, just go 30 miles east of Mexico Beach, which is like 15 miles east of Panama City Beach. And there you've got a place that I actually had under contract for $655,000 for a 3-2 beachfront. Find that anywhere else in Florida. You can't.
It's impossible.
So this is a device called an iPhone. If you guys haven't seen one of these before, have you seen this before?
No, never.
You know what you can do with this? You can shoot video. So I'm flying. I literally got a new booking as I'm sitting in the Panama City Beach airport last Thursday, watching Fox News like everybody else, or CNN or whatever, seeing what's going on in Russia and Ukraine. And literally I get a booking about 10 minutes before I jump on my flight, and I do this. Hey, Ryan, thank you so much for booking Dragonfly. I'm looking forward to hosting. I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Bill Faeth. I'm going to be your personal host and concierge. If there's anything I can do for you between now and July when you arrive, please don't hesitate to message me inside of the VRBO platform. I'm going to make sure you have a 5-star stay, and I'm here to serve you. Just something like that, impromptu. And then I text it, not in platform, text it to every single guest that's spending more than $5,000 a week with me. And in most of my properties during the summer, they're $12,000 to $17,000 a week. So that type of personal communication, you can't automate that because you need it to be individual. But I've got 31 messaging templates set up, and they vary property by property, from lake property to mountain property to ocean property. I send an average, and this may scare some people, of 9 messages to a guest, all pre-canned, written out, templated, and then customized for them. I use Hospitable for my messaging, and I use OwnerRez as my platform. And the thing that I love about Hospitable is it has the best customization and the artificial intelligence. So like, I don't have a Wi-Fi is down message, but when somebody messages either through Airbnb or through Vrbo or TripAdvisor or Booking.com, and it goes into OwnerRez, then it syncs over into Hospitable, and Hospitable sees Wi-Fi is down or these keywords, and it sends the automated message for me. So it'll say, hey, go to the router. It's located here. Reboot it. It knows what property it's coming from, right? And here's 1, 2, 3. Unplug it. Wait 2 minutes. Replug it back in. If it doesn't work, message me. Then I might have to get involved on a regular basis. So right now, 17 properties, and I'm in the middle of renovation with 2, 5 to 7 hours a week. So I can do that and be a dad and be present with my family and be effective running my other 4 businesses, because it's not taking me 20, 30, 40 hours a week, even with 1 property. But you got to understand the systems. And folks, that's why guys like me and Michael and E are here. It's to teach you the systems from not only the successes that we've had, but the mistakes that we've made in the past. And that's automated messaging, automated pricing optimization with like Price Labs, looking at platforms like Michael is a guesty guy, right? Tremendous operating platform. All of these things that we can set up, but it starts with one thing. I'm just going to grab, I love big Post-it notes. I like my big Sharpie. It starts with making a list. What do we want to execute on our back operations? You don't need to write out a full freaking business plan, but just start making some lists. And then you identify what are the redundant tasks. And this is for any business. What are the redundant tasks that you're doing every day that you could pay a VA or pay somebody else to do, and either figure out a way to automate it, either through a virtual assistant. You can find those all day long at onlinejobs.ph, and just type in Airbnb and Vrbo, and you can find people that have worked at Airbnb and Vrbo to come in and be a virtual assistant, or automate it through technology. Remote lock, Wi-Fi locks, smart thermostats, all these things can literally reduce your time spent by about 95%.
One thing I just wanted to highlight from what you just said, because I've been getting a lot of people asking me, you guys talk a lot about systems, like what is a system? And I think they automatically go to like, it's a piece of technology or a software. What you just described is a system, right? So think of anytime you're going to do something in your business, like Bill said, from those 31 message templates, if you're finding, hey, I keep sending this message, create a template and then automate it to send out. That's a one simple system. And so when you're going and building your business, it can feel overwhelming to like think of, oh my God, I'm going to have to build 200 systems. Just shift your mindset to think, anytime I'm doing something new or something that feels repetitive, I'm just going to take a little extra time, record it, document it, create some automation, or create an SOP, just record it on Loom of like, here's how I did this thing. Next time you do it and I'll review it. So it just continues to pull you out of the business. And that's how you build a full SOP playbook over time. You don't have to tackle the whole thing at once, but just get in the habit of creating those documents and those recordings daily for the next 6 months or however long it takes. And then eventually you're going to look up and be like, wow, like I have a team, or I have all these automated things that are doing all this stuff for me, and I don't have to do it anymore.
I kind of think about it in terms of, if this, then what? Right. So if this happens, then what do I have to do? And my goal is to take the second part of that equation and change and remove I from that. So if this happens, then this takes care of it. And if I can think about that methodology, if the Wi-Fi goes down, then what happens? When we're all starting out, that means I got to grab my phone and I got to send a customized message, right? Well, the first step is you don't even need Guesty or Owner Res or any of that type of stuff. Literally just write out how to reboot your router and at least save it in a template inside of Airbnb, right? You can't do that in Verbo yet, or maybe never, but you can also schedule inside of Airbnb. And I look at the scheduling. One of the reasons I send out so many templates, Michael, and, as E was saying, one of the things I think I really specialize in is elevating my revenue by elevating the experience. So out of those 9 messages that are pre-templated, 7 of them are pre-check-in, right? 6 of the 9 are pre-check-in. And it starts with when somebody books, but then I start literally 12 weeks out, because I get a lot of bookings at vacation rentals in the winter for summer. And it starts with, hey, I know it seems early, but you might want to start planning, especially if you're coming in the summer. So once again, if they're coming in the summer, then they need to do this, right? Think about your reservations, book your fishing excursions. Here's the top 3 or 4 fishing charters. You want to go to these top restaurants, make these at least 2 weeks in advance. You want to have a private chef. They book up early, you want me to procure it. We need to do this, 2-3 months in advance. All these things that hotels don't do, the Marriott doesn't do, the Four Seasons don't do. Even the 50th to 75th or 90th percentile Airbnb hosts don't do that. So it doesn't cost us anything. It just takes some commitment to sit down and figure this shit out and write it out and then implement it and automate it. And that's how you're going to create value. By literally doing the simple video and just the communication, forget about the coffee bar, the fire pits, the hot tubs, all the stuff that costs money. That's how you're going to build the most important thing, and that's relationship, goodwill, and trust with your guests long before they even arrive at your property. And that's important for 2 critical reasons that a lot of people don't think about. Number 1 is the ability to get them to rebook. Number 2 is the ability to recover, not if, but when something goes wrong. So if something goes wrong and you have no rapport, no relationship, no trust, then guests are going to start to complain immediately, and you're not going to get any benefit of the doubt. If something goes wrong and you've built that rapport, built that trust, built that relationship, then you're typically going to get an opportunity to be able to recover. And I can tell you right now, I just dealt with this yesterday. The number 1 property I manage in my management portfolio, it's about a $285,000 a year property. It's incredible. Never had all 5-star reviews, never had an issue. Guest checks in, went back and looked at the QC report from my cleaners, refrigerator, freezer, ice machine's working fine. Ice machine wasn't working for them. And he called to complain, hey, I don't want to complain, but the ice machine's not producing ice. And this is like 7 o'clock last night. And I said, hey, Mr. Guest, I'll see if I can get a tech out there, but that's going to be a really challenging thing for me to do tomorrow. By the way, can you take a picture and send it to me so I can see it and give it to the tech? Just open up the freezer, take a picture. The arm was pushed down. I said, and I just replied to him, hey, you just need to simply lift up the arm and then let me know in the morning if you have ice. And what do you think the message was this morning? Hey, Bill, thank you so much for the help. We've got ice this morning. Mm-hmm. Whereas if I didn't have some type of rapport, the guest probably wouldn't have even sent me the photo, because they would have thought I'm blaming them or not believing what they're saying to me, right? They can take it a completely different way if there's no relationship. It's one of the things that I hate about going back and forth only with text, in-platform message, and email, is that we don't create that rapport. So when I send that video, if they don't respond to my video introducing myself, then I will wait a few days, typically 3-4 days, and I'll set a calendar reminder and I will pick up the phone and call them so I can have a conversation with them. And I think this is a really important element that a lot of people miss on that hospitality, because this is how we're creating value. Specifically, if we're asking them how we can help them and how we can help them prepare for their trip. And it's the same thing if you have a 2-bedroom apartment in downtown Boston or Chicago or whatever. You know, if I'm going to Chicago, and I love to eat, Michael, as you saw when you were here for a couple of days, and I've got proof for that. My wife and I plan most of our vacations around traveling to go to food cities. You know, we talked about the North End. Man, when I go to Boston the next time, because I know I go to the same place, Victoria Il Panino in the North End all the time, I'm going to hit guys up like Mike and say, hey, is there any place new I need to go try? Give me like 3, and I'll hit all 3 in the first night. If a host would do that, they're going to earn a tremendous amount of loyalty from me before I even get there.
Yeah.
So good.
You know,
so many nuggets from that.
What's really interesting is this, right? And this is what I've been thinking about as you're like kind of speaking about that. It makes so much sense why your properties perform so well. Also because for a couple of reasons, right? Like you buy them well, and then you add this little extra experience to it. But this is what I want people to understand, is that this is how you differentiate yourself in any market. Meaning, even if you're like, yeah, Bill, that sounds great. I don't want to invest out of my primary market because X and Y. Great. You can still do everything Bill was just talking about. And that's how you differentiate yourself. That's a hard word today. Differentiate yourself in a very competitive market. Because the reality in a very competitive market is that it's very crowded in mediocrity. If you start going the extra mile, you will look up and the field is empty. And this is the same in every market. Every market, even the most competitive markets, are most competitive in mediocrity. So if you go into the mediocre level, that's where you have the most competition. Always. But if you are able to create a unique experience and have a unique selling point, and this could be your unique selling point, right? Like this little concierge kind of aspect of it, this customized message, this personalized food and restaurant, right? This could be your wow experience that to somebody would be worth so much more than a green Instagrammable wall in the apartment where the rest of the experience is absolute shit, right? So understanding that, like, maybe you have a property, you're like, it's not that great of a property. Awesome. Can you do what Bill's talking about to create the wow experience, to win raging fans? Because at the end of the day, a bad is a bad. But if you can somehow create the wow experience with the property that you have, and that's why Mike is going to win up in Orlando, right? It's an amazing property. It's above everything else. And then once you bring in the customer service and the experience and the systems, that's what's going to bring him to that part of the field that has nobody in it.
You are so
And
dead on, E. I had a client named Dee Patel, who was a general manager of the Hermitage Hotel here in Nashville, Tennessee. Michael, I'm going to introduce you to her. Actually, she's not going to be here when you come back, but I want to take you by this hotel. It's the only 5-star, 5-diamond, 27 years in a row being a 5-star, 5-diamond hotel. It's the only one in the state of Tennessee. And she was a client of the $9 million ground transportation company. She was a client. And I didn't like her a whole lot when I first took her on as a client because they were so demanding. She became one of my best friends as a client. And she spoke at a conference I hosted 2019. And she talked about the most important thing that she implemented when she became general manager, and it was the +1. And her definition of the +1, and they talk about it every single shift change before the staff, from the housekeeping team to the chefs to the front desk to the management team to the doorman. They need to make somebody unexpectedly happy. It could be a guest and it can be a coworker, and they have to impact a guest and a coworker every single day on that +1. So I owned a limo company, a ground transportation company, right? So I had them before I sold for 4.5 years as a client. And I kind of took that and embedded that into my ground transportation company. That was one of my big separators. I taught my chauffeurs, my dispatchers, my sales team, everybody that interacted with other human beings, that we need to do that. Now, my wife tells my 2 daughters, hey, make somebody smile today when we drop them off at school. That's our thing every single day. So I look at his hosts. How do we take $125 a night, property and turn that into $175 a night property? It's the things that he just said, but how do you make your guests smile every single night that they're there, every single day that they're there? So I look at the plus ones that you can put in your properties. It blows me away that the high percentage of people that don't leave a welcome gift or even a thank you card or a welcome card, for when guests check in. Instead, you don't need to advertise everything that you're doing in your listing. Take your s'mores kits for your, take s'mores, take the graham crackers and the marshmallows and the Hershey's chocolate bars that are sitting in the pantry or whatever. Spend $1.92 and buy a ribbon and some plastic and literally send it to your cleaners and have them wrap it up, or you wrap them up and then have your cleaners set them on the counter, and then spend like $9 or $10 on Amazon and buy a s'mores little wood sign and put it on the kitchen counter or the backsplash. And then that way, don't put it in your listing. So when they walk in and they want to go to the fire pit and they've got kids, they say, oh my God, look at this. They've got s'mores kits for us. That little shit, that little thing can add $10, $15, $25 to your ADR by doing something very, very small like that. So you think about it, if you have a $125 property, you're probably going to be between like 2 to 6 occupancy, right? So let's just say you're 6 on the high end. So if you need a s'mores kit that's going to supply 6, that's probably like $5 max. What if you can raise your ADR to where everybody's paying 25 and probably only 25 to 30% of the people are going to use the kit? So this is how you take the hospitality and focus it back into your financials. And then you have like what he said, and I'll be done here in just a second. The one thing I want you to understand, my thought process, when I put in the coffee bar, and understand, I don't drink coffee. So I had to go to my coffee aficionados and say, hey, what do I need? And when he says coffee bar, 18 different types of K-cups, 3 different types of ground coffee, 3 different types of beans. Yes, I know enough to have my cleaners rotate those out every couple of days, even if they're not used, so they stay fresh. Frother, French press, grinder, all the shit. And it's like coffee for 6 months and everything was less than $700. Raised my ADR, I think it was about $27 or $30 at every single property once I instilled it. But it also does something more important. It gives me another avenue to be able to market, right? So when I'm buying property, I'm looking and I'm analyzing from the time I see it for the first time, how am I going to position this? How am I going to market this? When I'm adding an amenity, how am I going to market this? Because as he said, if you're flatlined, if you're in that 50th to 75th percentile in the Smokies, you got no chance. If you own that 2-bedroom in Kissimmee, down the street from Michael's Mac Daddy, space, blue, alien, kind of superheroes theming that he's got going on, you're not going to be able to compete. And that's one of the problems where people default and they think about they can't make money in saturated markets. You can make money in Kissimmee. You can make money in Kissimmee with a 2-bedroom condo. But you got to have more than all the other amenities in the same 4 walls that everybody else is putting up on their listing. Yeah. It's like Michael's house. What did you say, Michael? It's an 11 or 10 bedrooms and a loft or something like that. There's hundreds of those in Kissimmee and Davenport and at Champions Gate. It's when you see what he's doing inside of this property and the hosting side outside of just what happens inside of those 4 walls is how you elevate to 30% and 50% above the top line of what AirDNA is saying. So when I look at a property and it says it's going to do $100,000 in revenue, I know automatically, once I've seen the canvas that I can paint, once I've seen the property, I'm calculating, okay, is this one going to be 30% over 90% AirDNA? Or am I going to be able to push this to 50 or 60%? Because of all the other stuff. It's not about the property. It's about what we put into it. And most importantly, about why people are coming. And Michael's property, from what I've seen, is going to be freaking amazing. That's why I asked him for the link. I would love to take a small mastermind group that I have down there to stay at his property. But it's still not the #1 reason that I'm coming down there. I'll do it to support a friend and because the place is super cool. Why would I be making the decision to go to Orlando? Because of Disney or because of golf? So the last thing I'll leave you with is you got to understand that our properties are secondary. What's around our property is the decision-making process of why somebody is renting from us, because they're coming to our location. I don't know anybody that's just gone and searched for the coolest Airbnb or VRBO and said, oh, honey, hey, let's go vacation here. Or you know what? I'm going to go on a business trip because that apartment is super cool, in downtown St. Paul, Minnesota. They're going to visit Medtronic or whatever it is up there, and then they're going to look for your cool apartment. So if you keep that in mind and understand that's part of your marketing and your branding package is what's going on around. And I promise you, a big deal for Michael, outside of all the money and all the awesome theming he's doing inside of this house, is going to be proximity to Disney, because that's why people are coming. And the closer you are, the better off you're gonna be, because you're gonna be able to raise your ADR. If Michael's 5 minutes away and I'm 15, I got no chance.
I paid a premium for this property because it's the closest resort to Disney for that reason.
Yeah.
Exactly what he just said.
Yeah.
Are you
And
a champion?
one thing that I just want to, no, I'm closer than Champions. I'm
Nice.
10 minutes closer than Champions Gate. So the thing that I want to highlight before we wrap it up and have our fun announcement here is all the stuff that Bill was talking about. Think logically for a second. If you do all those things, what your goal is for everything is to provide the best guest experience possible. When you're going through and reviewing properties and you're looking at all of them and you're comparing to, and maybe Bill's is $100 a night more expensive, but you're reading his reviews and it's saying best Airbnb experience ever. Bill's gonna get those bookings, right? You want those reviews to be like, this was the best experience I've ever had staying at an Airbnb or Vrbo or a short-term rental in general. When you do that, just by doing a few of those simple things, like the video thing alone is going to set you apart. If you do those things, that's what's going to increase your ADR, because you can charge more if people know that they're going to get a better experience. There might be bigger houses around here. There might be cool things here and there. But if I consistently get those reviews, that's what's going to make people book my place. So I just wanted to highlight that.
Michael, you're 100% correct. Can I read a review for you? I launched a new property, the house that I mentioned earlier that I built, a 6-bedroom, 4-bath, brand new construction in Gulf Shores, Alabama. And before I read the review, I want to share one. So I bought the lot in January of last year, and it's tier 2. So beach is here. There's West Beach Boulevard, and then there's my house. But there's 4 open lots in front of me. I market it as almost beachfront. I'm 50 yards from the beach where you're going to set up your stuff, but there's no houses in front of us. My guests walk directly across that lot, the 4 lots. They don't have to walk down the street and cross over. And I have unencumbered views. How did I know that was going to happen? What's keeping somebody from going in and building right in front of me? Because of the fact that I did my research and I found out the LLC that owned that and found a living trust associated with it, with kids that were 11 and 14 years old. So I believe I've got at least 10 years and probably 15 years by doing my deep research. So I bought this lot, built the house, and now I've got literally a $250,000 to $300,000 a year property that if there were houses right in front of me today, it's probably $185,000 to $200,000. So that's part of the evaluation process. But here's my first review that I got on that house in December. I want to read to you guys. This is from Christine and Scott. Stay here. Here is in all caps. Stay here unless you are allergic to comfort and luxury. Bill and Bria built an amazing new beach house that is fully loaded with literally everything you can imagine. The house looks like it's straight out of the last 2 minutes of an HGTV show, and the location is perfect. The kids love the heated pool, large Connect 4 bites, and of course, cornhole. And my wife loved the coffee bar. We will be back for sure, as this is the nicest and cleanest beach house we've ever stayed in on the Gulf. The very first review.
Yeah.
And
Bill, I think what makes it amazing about you, you remind me of something that my marketing professor in college used to talk about. A lot of brands, when they're up and coming and they're not sure and they want to kind of like fake it till they make it, they over promise and under deliver, which is actually how you die, right? Because then you hype it, and then people are disappointed. She's like, for you to be unique and sustainable on the long term, you instead have to do always the opposite. You under promise and you over deliver on every aspect, every single time, in every way. And that's how you gain raging fans. And that's the clear example, right? Like everything that is in your listing, you're still under promising because there's still so much more. But in this age of like Instagram and this branding, so many people are like, I'm gonna put everything I have on paper, even if it's not true. Whereas in reality, you need to leave some suspense, some surprise, because the surprise is what makes it memorable, right? Because we're so ingrained in the fact that like when you're surprised, it's such a rare thing now to be surprised, right? You're not surprised very often. So if you can deliver surprise in a container of a unique and amazing experience already, that's gonna be epic. And that's gonna be one of those things that the family's gonna talk about. Like, hey, you know what I was just thinking about? Do you remember the one time we went to the property on the golf and we had no idea that there was gonna be a golf cart there? And we used to drive the golf cart to the beach every morning, just me, you, and Dad. Do you remember how awesome that was? What value does that have? How else are you going to provide that? If instead you have everything there, everything advertised, and then they get there and the golf cart is out of battery. Ugh. Right?
You're 100% correct.
You know, and that's magic. I think that's really like what makes the properties so much more ADR per night is the over delivery and the under promising in all aspects, right? They don't expect the message. They don't expect the 6 emails leading up to the stay. They don't expect you to tell them like, hey, look out, make reservations here because it books out, or this chef is amazing, but he books out early. They're all things that they're like, oh my God, this guy is over delivering over and over and over and over. So how don't you get raging fans?
And I think one thing that becomes really important, like in this review, and this house is very nice. I mean, and Michael and I kind of have a competitive advantage because we're married to really good interior designers. But if you really take a piece out of interior design and you look at the really high ADRs, like what Michael was saying, a lot of people will get stuck in their mentality of my house is smaller, I don't have as good of a location. Interior design and furnishings have a lot to do with your ADR. I've got a gentleman in my mastermind group named John Hodge. He's in Memphis, Tennessee. He owns over 127 units there. And he has increased his gross profit margin, basically his rental income, by 30% plus since he started hiring an interior designer out of Miami down in E's neck of the woods, and started trying to create his smaller 1 and 2 bedrooms in the urban part of Memphis, downtown Memphis. We're not talking like a suburb of Germantown or Collierville, but to the level of like what I was designing, my 5-6 bedroom homes. And he's seen his profit skyrocket by 30% plus. So I think one of the mistakes that I see, and Michael, I'm sure you see it with your students too, is that people get involved in this, that one, they don't allocate enough budget for design post-close when they've acquired a property. But 2, they always try to do it on the cheap. It's kind of like the afterthought. Oh, can I buy this stuff? Where can I get the best deals? Can I buy stuff at, thrift stores and discount stores and Facebook Marketplace and that type of stuff? Go buy your bed and spend $600, but get a great mattress and then great European throws and, furnishings and duvets on top of it. But I can tell you the finishes, just like when you're building or buying a house, the finishes that we put into our properties are going to make a huge difference. And if I went through and read more reviews, and I'm sure Michael has and E have similar things, those finishes are really important, specifically, probably not as much to us as the guys, the fathers, the husbands, but to our wives. And if you really look at your portfolio and understand who's booking, unless you're like in the business travel urban area, if you're in vacation rental markets like the 3 of us are and that type of stuff, it's typically going to be the mom. And she may not own the profile, but she's the one that's looking. She's the one that's making the decision. And that goes back to something I learned, Michael, when you couldn't be here and you remoted into my boot camp in June of last year, that I learned from TJ to Johnny. And I had never even thought, and I have some pretty large kitchens, to pull my drawers out, open up my cabinets, and take photos of everything that we have in there. And I've done it ever since. And now I actually build out a key, so I'll have the picture, the overall picture, and I'll use Canva and draw lines and say, here's where the wine glasses are, here's where, you know, the blender is, all that type of stuff. And that's great for utility for our guests once they've arrived. But I can't tell you how many people in either the pre-booking communication or the immediate post-booking communication have said, you have a beautiful house, but one of the reasons we decided is we saw how much stuff you have stocked in your laundry room and your game room, and most importantly in your kitchen, because we're used to going to properties that have old stuff and half of it's missing. Mm-hmm. Those small things, my friends, is what's going to make a huge difference, especially if you want to level up.
Yeah. And I think
also, I literally did that last night. I went and inventoried all the stuff in my kitchen and took all those shots so I could have that ready to go when I build it, because it is huge.
And here's what I want people to understand. I'm the high-end luxury guy. I'm the one that teaches you how to get bigger properties. I'm doing the same shit on my own. And I learned this from an arbitrage guy, you know, and TJ's great. He's exceptional, but he's dealing in much lower price points. So he figured out that's a huge selling point that I never even thought of. I'd overlooked it. But now I've incorporated it, and Michael's incorporating it in a huge property as well. And that's how we all lift each other up.
Which is also exactly what I was saying, right? Like for TJ, it's a way for him to differentiate himself in those lower price points where the competition, there's not as much uniqueness. So people are looking for that extra mile on the service, right? And then another thing, guys, it's just like, this is a huge pet peeve of mine, which I'm glad Bill kind of brought up. How you furnish places, it's you showing to your guest how much you care about them and their money. Do not, for any reason, buy used furniture. And the reason I'm saying that is because if I am your guest and I realize that, like, think about how you would feel, right? Where did you get that? Goodwill? And then I just vacuumed it, and here it is for you. Wouldn't you feel grossed out that you're spending $150, $200, $300 and somebody is bringing you used things? Like, come on. Have some respect for the people that are like spending money. Because again, the way that I've survived for the past 12 years is that sometimes making money is not as important as taking care of my guests. But that's why I have guests that have been coming to me for 12 years, right? I have guests that I haven't lost. They come in every season. Through COVID, they still find a way to drive down, right? Because I care. You have to care. Especially if you're trying to do it the way Bill is doing it, the way Mike is doing it, the way I'm doing it, and you want to do this for the long term. If you don't want to do this for the long term, you're just looking to cash flow for a year, go for it. But to me, business is about longevity. And if you need longevity, you have to respect people. You can't just take the profit, take the extra cash flow, take, and then not take care of people. That's just not right to me, you know?
Amen.
I love it. Well, we've gone way longer than we typically do on these shows, which I figured would happen when we had Bill on, because he's always full of nuggets. But Bill, why don't I get
chicken nuggets or educational nuggets? What are you referring to there?
Oh, the good stuff. The good stuff. Educational nuggets. So we've been holding off on this. Bill and I have been talking about this for a couple months now and kind of sharing some ideas. And I ended up going down there to hang out with him in Nashville, whatever that was, 2-3 weeks ago. And got everything buttoned up. So I want to let you share it, because I feel like, one, I'm super grateful for what we're putting on, but we wouldn't be able to do it without you, right? And so I think it would be fitting for you to kind of announce what we've got going on, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I'm super excited so Michael and I have put a partnership together that really is manifested back almost 9 months ago, June of last year. And I've always wanted to put on a mega conference, but I wanted to do it my way. And what I mean by that is I want, if anybody's familiar with Grant Cardone's 10X, Russell Brunson's Funnel Hacking Live, I want it to be exciting. I want it to be entertaining. I want it to be lively. And I want it to have the absolute best education this industry has ever seen. And I want to make it affordable. And the cool thing is Michael and I aligned 100% on that vision. So I'm pretty excited to announce the STR Wealth Conference, June 6th through the 8th in Nashville, Tennessee. You can go to strwealthconference.com, strwealthconference.com, and get your tickets. There's going to be 1,000 hosts that we're going to be entertaining. We'll have a kick-ass opening party on June 6th. So you can fly in June 6th. Education all day on the 7th, on the 8th. I don't know when this is going to be released. Hopefully there's some VIP tickets left. I'm sure this stuff's going to go very, very fast. I mean, we're flying in Julie George, the $1 million host from Australia, TJ Tajani, the king of Burr from Houston, Texas, that we just talked about. We've got Chris Ledwidge, the title sponsor, the lender, if you need financial help with your next STR. We have Kenny Bedwell, founder of STR Insights, which is the data that I use, which I believe is the strongest data in our industry to make evaluation and identify emerging markets. Stacy St. John, Rachel Gainsbourg. We've got Noble Crawford. We have an unbelievable lineup plan. We've got more to announce with couple of more secret vendors, some big entertainment announcements here in the next couple of weeks, and rounding out the speaking sessions. It's not going to be like going to an old rundown hotel. This is going to be electric. And it's the biggest event that is host specific, investor specific, that will have happened since 2015 when Airbnb hosted their conference in San Francisco.
Bill, the question
I couldn't be more excited.
The question that everybody wants to know is how many different kind of coffees are you going to have?
That's a good question. Well, I think I'm going to leave that up to our coffee sponsor, who hopefully we'll be able to announce here in the next week or so. But I would imagine there won't be 20 different types of coffee. Yeah. But here's the other cool thing, Ethan, I'm going to share with you. It is the CMA Music Festival week in Nashville. It's the biggest week of the year. So we go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and if you're a country music fan, right behind Mike saw this, right out the back window of the VIP lounge, you're going to see the biggest country stars playing music while we're in our event. And on Thursday, after we're done, we're talking the top 25 country stars in the industry. Garth Brooks, Taylor Swift, Luke Combs, they're right across the river in Nissan Stadium for the biggest country music festival of the year put on by the CMAs. And the venue's the Wild Horse Saloon, which is the most iconic music venue, in Nashville. And it is, as Michael saw, it is right in the heart of the mix. There will never be anything like this in our industry, I promise you. It is going to be off the frickin' chain.
I can't wait, guys. I was blown away when I was down there with Bill. We went in there, we filmed a bunch of stuff. You can check all the videos that we did at strwealthconference.com. So you'll actually get to see the venue, but it is unreal. Like, it is unreal. Like, all the audio, video, 20-foot screens, music, there's all sorts of games. Like, it is not a conference, it's an event. And so I was super pumped when, Bill and I were talking about this and figuring out, like he was saying, sharing that vision of creating an epic experience for hosts and operators. And I am so excited and so confident in this event that you guys just need to get there, right? And the super early bird pricing, we've only allocated a couple hundred tickets for this.
300.
And Bill and I have, given our coaching members kind of first dibs on it, and they're going quick. And so super early bird pricing is only $397. So again, making it ridiculously affordable. If you want the VIP experience, that's $24.97. There's only 20 of those seats, and we've already sold out 8 in the last 24 hours.
25 seats, actually. 25 VIP.
25.
So the one thing I'll tell you is we're filming this on Thursday. I think you're releasing this like Monday.
Yeah.
As of right now, almost 100. So you said 200. 100 of those super early birds are already gone, and we've only made it available to Michael's mastermind and my mastermind. I was actually
without any of our speakers announcing yet. Nobody has said anything, and like I am expecting TJ, especially TJ has a big old group of people. They'll come. So literally, guys, if you're listening to this on Monday, bounce on it, because as soon as TJ puts it up and Julie puts it up with how much content these guys have been putting on Clubhouse, and it's Nashville, which is again one of the most fun cities in America. I think I remember I was mostly hangover most of the time, but that is my intention this time as well. So I'll be there as well, and we'll just have a blast. And I'm really looking forward to it. So don't wait, because again, like if you've been in any of our Clubhouse rooms, if you listen to this podcast, if you've been in Bill's community, you know how we deliver and you know how we give. And literally, I think people are going to be taking advantage of what they learn in those 2 days for the next 12 to 18 months following that event, making it probably the best STR year for them that they've ever had.
And I'll tell you, come for the education and stay for the entertainment. You will, if you've never been to a CMA music festival, and I think what Michael didn't understand is literally 100 yards from Broadway is Luke Bryan's Florida Georgia Line, John Rich's, Jason Aldean's, and they're all going to, if you're into country music, they will all be playing inside of their honky tonks. So when we get done at like 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night, you just walk down there. And by the way, this isn't like a regular conference. We're feeding you. We're going to have some adult beverages on the opening party. Michael and I are putting our money where our mouth is. And I'm transparent, man. I was a little bit nervous when we started, but I'm not anymore. Michael and I are putting $125,000 each, $250,000 at the beginning budget. That won't be the end budget to put it on to give you drinks, give you food, incredible freaking entertainment at the party, and bring in the best education from all over the world to where you can get your biggest bang for your buck. The only tip I'm going to give you is book your hotel early. Everything's at strwealthconference.com, strwealthconference.com. And I look forward to seeing you guys here.
Yeah. And if you don't like country music, or you're on the fence on country music, from personal experience, the more you drink, the better country music sounds. So you'll be fine.
Well, let me tell you something. Here's what people don't understand about Nashville. I mean,
Jack, a lot of rock in Nashville.
It's everything, man. I mean, it's unbelievable, the music.
Amazing talent just walking, even like going around the hockey tonks during the day. You just find those people trying to make it. And I remember being on Broadway, just walking in a random bar. It was like probably 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And there was this guy there singing his ass off. And it was just the most amazing thing, because you're like, you should be in a bigger venue. Like, you're just ridiculous. And it's just like the level of talent that is in Nashville. It's kind of like LA for country singers, right? It's just like everybody goes there because that's where you make it.
It's nasty. That's all I can say is it's like Janet Jackson nasty, because Michael and I were walking to lunch, right? And we were literally walking down Broadway, and I'm like, dude, we need to go in here. It wasn't like Garth Brooks or Dirk Smelly. They were freaking singing GNR. Got some Guns N' Roses going on in there. It's everything, and it's going to be insane. And I know Michael's excited about it, and I'm excited to be your local host as well. And just don't miss it, because you will have FOMO. You don't want to see the production value that Michael and my guy Chris is going to put together for this thing. It's going to be insane, and probably most importantly, it's under $400. I can't remember the exact price. It's like $387, $399, something like that. But super early bird tickets, we've allocated 30% of those tickets to be under $400 because Michael and I want to make it affordable. We're not here to get rich off of this. We're here to educate you and put on the best fucking event this industry has ever seen.
100%. So seriously, guys, this isn't like some, we're good here. We're good. We're all adults. But again, this isn't like some marketing thing or like, I'm serious. Like, they're going to go fast, like very fast. So I'd highly encourage you guys to get in at the super early bird price because they're going to go up as soon as we hit the 300 tickets. So if you're going to go, just say yes, grab your tickets, go get your hotels. And then I'm super pumped to hang out, meet a bunch of you guys down in Nashville, June 6th through 8th. It's going to be absolutely epic. Like absolutely. I cannot express like how excited I am about this. Like when I went down there, I was like, this venue and what we've got lined up is going to be unreal, like literally. So
Michael, we've been on this podcast for an hour and 9 minutes. So let's just call it an hour. 11 tickets were sold. No marketing, no nothing, just from our masterminds. So that's 11 tickets, 10 tickets an hour, we'll call it. Right. So I'm not a big fan of like urgency and scarcity because a lot of times it's BS when people use it. This is going to be real. As E said, when TJ and Michael and my 20,000 person Facebook group and TJ's 35,000 Instagram followers and Julie George's reach and Stacy's and Noble's and they all get that stuff out and you're going to see it flood. You've already seen it flood by the time you're watching this. Get your super early birds while you can because we want to see you here at the lowest price available.
Yeah. And if you liked anything we've ever talked about on this podcast or on Clubhouse, imagine how fired up we're gonna get with each other at an event. Me and may not be drinking, so it's going to be fun and it's gonna be unfiltered and it's literally like, I mean, guys, you don't have to come. We'll be there. We're gonna have a blast. You should be there. And again, if you liked our show, this is your chance to come and hang out and just actually like let us serve you, let us pour into you so you guys can just blow it up.
And I think one thing we didn't talk about, Michael, is even the networking opportunities. The structure of the conference is designed so you can network, and we will have some networking, not even just opportunities, but strategery. That's, Southern for strategy in place for you. And on the second night, we're going to have a dedicated networking event once the conference is done with an open bar, with this type of stuff in the venue right next door to us. Which we typically don't get at conferences, that we go to inside and outside of this industry. So we've thought, hopefully not of everything, but, most of the stuff, and it's going to be kick-ass. There's no question. So I hopefully you come to Music City. I want to show you my town.
I love it. Well, Bill, thank you again, as always, for coming on here, sharing your knowledge. Super excited to do this event with you down there and looking forward to seeing everybody down there. So again, guys, go to STRWealthConference.com, grab your tickets, have an awesome week. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Hey, STR Nation, if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and leave us a review. And in the comments, let us know what topics you want us to cover on upcoming episodes, and we'll make sure to get that in the books for you. And if you really want to learn how to launch, automate, and scale your short-term rental business, if you want to go deeper, then check out our free masterclass at strsecrets.com.